Hey guys, welcome to the 1.5 video for pre-algebra. We're talking about adding integers, and you might be thinking, adding integers, I think I've done that once before. Maybe we don't need to talk about that anymore. Well, to some extent, yeah. I mean, we've done things like that. Like, 4 plus 11, of course, equals 15, and you can probably even do 367 plus, 41, and add them up. And of course, we would say that's 8. 10, carry the 1, and then you get a 4, so 408. Yeah, that's fine. But what about things like 474 plus negative 390? That might be a little different. So let's go ahead and get into this. So I think the best way to explain this is just to start doing some problems, okay? So let's take 3 plus negative 9, for instance, okay? So how would I evaluate that? Well, let's see. What do we know about plus and negative? Okay, and I don't think this is new to any of you guys, but if it is, that's okay. Plus and negative actually means what operation? Plus and negative means minus. So we're actually taking 3 minus 9. Okay, and for those of us who know it easy, yeah, it's negative 6. But the reason behind that is, well, let's go to the number line. Okay, so we have 3 minus a 9. What that means is we start there, okay, at 3. And we're going to then subtract 9. Okay, so we're going to end up somewhere. We know it's going to be negative 6, but just bear with me for a second. So if I'm starting here at the first number and then I'm subtracting the next number, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, that's my ending point, but my end point is not 9. It's not negative 9. It's negative 6, and we can make sure of that by saying, well, if that's 3, it's 2. 1, 0, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6 is right there. And that, of course, is the answer we got. So, when in doubt, you can go to the number line, right? Or, you might be able to do this. Whenever you're subtracting, okay, which is what we turn this problem into, right? So, we had 3 plus negative 9. We said, oh, plus a negative, that means minus, so it's 3 minus 9. Okay. So whenever you have subtraction of two numbers, and the first number is smaller than the second number, here's what you can do. You can take the second number, which is 9 in this case, subtract from it the first number, okay, and that's 6. But then what you can do is you can temporarily, or not temporarily, what we've done is we've temporarily suspended this negative sign, right? Because 3 minus 9, technically the sign of the 9 is negative. Right? So what I've done is just pretended for a second that it's a positive 9. So I've taken 9 minus 3, and we got 6. But we know our answer isn't 6, it's negative 6 from doing it up here. So what I do is I take that sign, and I put him right there, making it negative, and there's our answer. So why don't you try that method, the second method, on this problem. Take 110 and subtract from it 374. Okay, so hopefully you paused the video and tried that. So let's see, what do we do? Well, it's a subtraction problem, and this number is smaller than that number. So what do we do? Well, we're going to take the second number and pretend it's positive for a second, so 374. We're going to subtract from it the first number, 110. Okay, so subtracting 4 minus 0 is 4, 7 and 1 is 6, 3 and 1 is 2. So, here's our answer, right? But we know that can't be. In fact, it's reasonable to expect that our answer is going to be negative, because if you think about it, 110 minus 374, if this is 110, and I'm going to subtract from it 374, and I know this is not to scale, but that's 0, we know I'm going to have to go at least 110, but more than 110, right? I have to go 374 spots to the left. This is only going to get me 110 spots to the left. I have to keep going. So, can't be a positive 264, but if I take that sign, or from up there, and I bring it down, our answer is actually negative 264. But how about problems like this? Negative 5 plus 3. Well, on small ones, we can use a number line to be sure. Okay, I can say, well, I'm starting at negative 5, and I'm doing what? Well, I'm adding 3. So let's see. That's 0 right there. So I'm starting at negative 5. I'm going to add 3. Well, adding means going to the right on a number line if I'm adding a positive number. So 1, 2, That's 3 spots. And what is that right there? Well, that spot right there is -2, which is, of course, our answer. All right? But what if we're talking about things like, -64 plus, 39? How about that? How can we do that? How can we make this easier on ourselves? Well, we can kind of do something similar to what we did up here, okay? I know that the answer to -64 plus 39 is going to be -25, okay? So I just did that calculation quick, but let me show you how this works. When you have a number that's smaller here, and you're adding to it a positive, so you have a negative number, yeah, you have a negative, you're adding to it a positive, what you can do is subtract 64 and 39, okay? Well, let's see, that'd be a 5, so that'd be a 1 there, so 14 minus 9 is, well, 5. 5 minus 3 is 2. We have a positive 25, but I know the answer is -25. So kind of like we did up there, I'm going to make the answer negative, and I can pull that sign from there. You don't really have to pull it from anywhere. You can just insert the negative if you want. But there's our answer, -25. Now let's see if that makes sense. Well, if we started at -64, and let's say that's 0 there, and we're going to add 39 to it, I'm not going to get all the way to 0, right? I'm going to be somewhere roughly in between. In fact, that spot where I stop is -25. So why don't you guys take a second and let's see, that should have been problem number 4. This will be problem number 5. Why don't you try -424, and I want you to add to it 307. Pause the video, try that, see how you do. Alright, so hopefully you said, oh, you know what? I can take the first number and subtract from it the second number. Okay, so 424, and we're going to pretend this is positive. So 424, we're going to subtract from it 307. Let's see, that'd be a 1, 4, so that'd be 7, 1, 1. 117, okay? But is it positive 117? No, it's actually going to be what? It's going to be -117, okay? Now the reason we put this one on top is because -424 actually has a larger absolute value than 307. Okay, well, what does that mean again? Well, remember, the absolute value of -424 is how far away is -424 from 0? Well, it's 424 spots. How far away is 307 from 0? Well, it's only 307. So the one with the larger absolute value goes on top of our little subtraction problem, and then again we tack on the negative at the end. So how about a negative minus a negative? So like, let's say -4 minus -3. Well, what does minus a negative mean? Well, minus a negative actually means plus a positive. So now we're taking -4 and adding to it 3. And we've done that up there. We said, oh, okay, like in this case, you had a number with it was negative, but it had a larger absolute value than the other number. So you take the first one in positive form minus the second one. So we take the first number, which is -4, but we give it positive, and we subtract from it 3. Okay, and we know that's 1. But since we're doing this kind of little odd thing here, we're making a negative number positive, our answer needs to become -1. And that makes some sense too. We could use the number line and say, well, if I start at -4 and I add 3, it means go 1, 2, 3. So it'd be -4, -3, -2, -1 would be our answer right there. And of course, we already know it's -1. And so how about this one? -54 minus -53. Well, again, tell you what, why don't you pause the video and try this one, and then play it when you're done. All right, so again, minus a negative, when we see that, we need to think plus a positive. So now we're taking -54 plus a positive 53, okay? And we can, pretty much figure that one out quick, and that it is -1. But if we wanted to use the method, okay, this has a larger absolute value than this. So I take this absolute value, okay, which is 54, and I subtract from it his absolute value, which is 53. Okay, 54 minus 53 is 1. But of course we know we're doing this funky little turn the negative number into a positive number, so that means we need to make our answer actually negative, and we get negative 1 just like we had up there. All right, so what if we had something like this? Negative 30 plus a 44. Well, let's see. If I just kind of quick sketch on a number line, say 0's there, negative 30 would be right there. Okay, so if I'm going to increase my negative 30 by 44, I'm going to go, let's see, all the way, and I'm actually going to pass 0, right? Because going from negative 30 to 0 would only be 30 moves, but I need to do 44 moves. So we know we're going to end up somewhere over here. So let's use the method we've been talking about, all right? So negative 30 and then 44. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the absolute value of both these numbers, right? So the absolute value of negative 30 is 30. The absolute value of 44 is 44. And I'm going to subtract the larger, or the smaller one, from the larger. Meaning I just set up this problem, 44 minus 30. Okay. And, well, let's see. 44 minus a 30. That's going to give me a 4 and then a 1, so 14. But don't I make it negative? Well, let's think. If we did the number line way, we start at 30, and I'm going to move 44 spots. So that's 30 spots. But I have to go another 14, which gets me to my answer, which is actually 14 right there. So you're like, well, how do I keep it straight if I don't, sometimes I make the answer negative, sometimes I don't. Well, let's think about this. Maybe reordering the problem helps. So, negative 30 plus a 44. Would it be true to say that's the same as saying 44 minus 30? Are those the same? Actually, they are. We just said that negative 30 plus 44 gets us a 14. And of course, if you take 44 minus 30, that also gets you a 14. Okay? So don't be afraid to rearrange things. That's called using the commutative property of addition. All right, so I want you to pause the video and I want you to try this one. Okay, so I hope the first thing you realized was, okay, negative 10 minus negative 28. We have minus and negative. What does minus and negative mean? It means plus a positive. So we have our negative 10 and we're adding positive 28. Okay, so we could use the method, but you know what? If I think real quick, I could rearrange these things. Okay, 28, okay, we have a positive 28 and a negative 10. I could make this 28 minus 10. And 28 minus 10 would easily equal 18. Okay. Now, does that make some sense? Well, let's check the number line way. Okay. So if I go to negative 10, that's my starting point, I'm going to add 28. So I'm going to have to go, that's 0. If I go to 0, I've only moved 10 spaces. I need to move 28. So that would mean I need to move 18 more, which would put me there at 18. All right, so lastly, let's talk about a negative minus a positive. So if I had, negative 32, and I'm going to minus a positive or subtract a positive number, such as 9, okay? Well, a negative minus a positive, these are actually pretty easy, because what we can do for a sec is pretend they're both positive, okay? So I'm going to take 32 and then 9, and this time I'm going to add their absolute values, because the absolute value of negative 32 is 32. The absolute value of 9 is 9. So 32 plus a 9, well, that would get you 41. Now, let's think about the sign of our answer, though, because I'm starting at negative 32, and I'm moving 9 to the, well, I'm subtracting, so I'm going to the left. So I'm going to be down here, right? And down there, it's actually going to be negative 41. Okay, it's not going to be positive 41. Positive 41 would be, I'd have to go all the way to 0, and then this way. I'd have to add to get to positive 41, but I'm subtracting a 9, so our answer is negative 41. So I would give that a negative sign down there and call that our answer. Okay, so why don't you try this one? Pause the video, give that guy a try. He'll be number 11. And then let's see how you do. All right, so I have a negative minus a positive number. Okay, negative minus a positive number. Well, that one's the easy one because I just kind of pretend they're both positive for a sec, or take the absolute values, and I add them, and then I just slap on a negative sign at the end. So 314 plus 241, if I did that, I'd get 5, 5, and 5. Woo, 555. How about that? But, again, we're dealing with a negative number, and I'm subtracting more from it. I'm going further away from 0, so our answer is going to be negative 555. Hey guys, that's all I have for you. Look forward to seeing you in class. We'll do a lot more practice with this stuff, and I'll see you then.